Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. Today I want to talk a little bit about the circumstances that we find ourselves in currently. My wife and I have had a long ongoing narrative associated with just how one should interact with the news media. Part of the new podcast that I'll be shortly recording relates specifically to how one actually has a discussion associated with contemporary topics with the news media in the state that it's in. My preference is always to find a variety of sources and just try to interpolate through the various sources, because there is never one true source, and when you realize how many of the sources contradict themselves, you start to realize the tapestry that we find ourselves in currently. After having this discussion earlier in the week, we decided that we were going to unplug from the Google News app, we were going to unplug from Facebook, we were going to behave in such a way, not necessarily to be Luddites in the circumstance, but just moderate the kind of exposure that we had to information. That attempt lasted all of a day, and following the police shootings, I decided to sit myself down probably on Thursday night and actually review the video. Obviously, I was quite struck by the video, in particular the use of Facebook Live video to report on, or at least show video footage of what occurred at the specific time. It'd be too easy to say that these circumstances could have been avoided, and my perspective is actually it's genuinely ignorant of the circumstances that led up to these shootings. The gentleman killed in his car appears relatively clear that he was frequently stopped by the police, and perhaps through this frequent interaction, one becomes numb to these things after a period of time. Really, I'm not in a position or a place where I can give any degree of feedback, any degree of narrative, any degree of judgment associated with these things. I think the people that this does affect are mobilizing in a really positive way, and part of their mobilization is also to critically analyze history, particularly the history that is presented to them by the news media. The critical analysis associated with the Clintons, obviously I'm very positive about, and I think an ability to have a new generation that is motivated by a series of atrocities, but still seem to be looking very, very critically at the information that they're provided. All I can do is support from the sidelines associated with these things. In the near future, I'll be starting a new podcast, as I've noted. My hope is that some of this discourse can be echoed through the podcast, particularly as we look at not incremental change, but actually systemic change. I think the only way that these issues can be truly dealt with is through genuine systemic change, which for many will appear to be quite drastic, but actually when you look at the scope of the problem, I don't think they can be solved by incremental change. I don't think a new president or the current president or really any president of the United States would be capable of addressing the issues that seem to be befalling folks currently. And the hyper-militarism, even the events of the sniper in Dallas, the fact that he was military trained, all these kind of things rest heavily on me. Rather than providing narrative associated with what is going on currently, my wife and I have done a few simple things. On the day after the Dallas shootings, we decided to go to a diner for breakfast. It's a diner that had given relatively good food, relatively consistently. Unfortunately, on the day that we attended, my wife didn't have a particularly good breakfast, but just to go out in the general public and experience aspects of the US that we genuinely enjoy. Today, Saturday, we went and saw some films, kept it relatively easy going. The nature of these kind of changes, the nature of these kind of discussions, through these podcasts, I hope to impact a small fraction of a percent of the population. Just enough to get people thinking, just enough to get people talking. But associated with these kind of systemic changes that need to occur, all I can do in the future through a new podcast is bring people together to have particular kinds of discussions. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.